The story of Sakamoto family. On November 5, 1989, Tsutsumi Sakamoto, a lawyer working on a class action lawsuit against Aum Shinrikyo, a doomsday cult in Japan, was murdered, along with his wife Satoko and his child Tatsuhiko, by perpetrators who broke into his apartment. 6 years later, following the 1995 attack on the Tokyo subway, the murderers were uncovered and it was established that the murderers had been members of Aum Shinrikyo at the time of the crime. Tsutsumi was born in Yokosuka, Kanagawa. After graduating from Yokosuka High School, he entered Tokyo University and graduated in law. He worked as a law clerk until he passed the bar exam in 1984 at age 27. He was a member of the Yokohama Bar Association. From 1987 he worked as a lawyer at Yokohama law offices. At the time of his murder, Sakamoto was known as an anti-cult lawyer. He had previously successfully led a class action suit against the Unification Church on behalf of relatives of Unification Church members. In the suit, the plaintiffs sued for assets transferred to the group and for harm inflicted by worsened family relationships. A public relations campaign in which protesters demanded public attention to their cause was instrumental to Sakamoto's plan, and the Unification Church suffered a serious financial blow. By organizing a similar anti-Aum public relations campaign, Sakamoto apparently sought to demonstrate that all members, similar to members of the Unification Church, did not join the group voluntarily but were lured in by deception and were probably being held against their will by threats and manipulations. Furthermore, religious items were being sold at prices far greater than their market value, draining money out of the households of members in a practice called spiritual sales. If a judgment was handed down in his client's favor, Aum could be bankrupted, thus greatly weakening or destroying the group. In 1988, in order to pursue the class action suit, Sakamoto initiated the establishment of Aum Shinrikyo Higai Taisaku Bengoden, Coalition of Help for Those Affected by Aum Shinrikyo. This was later renamed Aum Shinrikyo Higai Shinokai or Aum Shinrikyo Victims Association. The group still operated under this title as of 2006. After Sakamoto's disappearance, lawyer Taro Tokimoto took over most of his anti-Aum Shinrikyo legal activities. In October 1989, Tokyo Broadcasting System Television, TBS, taped an interview with Sakamoto regarding his anti-Aum efforts. However, the network secretly showed a video of the interview to Aum members without Sakamoto's knowledge, intentionally breaking its protection of sources. Aum officials then pressured TBS to cancel the planned broadcast of the interview. Several days later, on November 3, 1989, several Aum Shinrikyo members, including Hideo Mirai, chief scientist, Satoru Hashimoto, a martial arts master, Tomomasa Nakagawa, and Kazuaki Okazuki drove to Yokohama, where Sakamoto lived. They carried a pouch with 14 hypodermic needles and a supply of potassium chloride. According to court testimony provided by the perpetrators later, they planned to use the chemical substance to kidnap Sakamoto from Yokohama's Shinkansen train station, but, contrary to expectations, he did not show up. It was a holiday, Bunka no Hai, or culture day, so he slept in with his family at home. At 3 a.m. on November 5, the group entered Sakamoto's apartment through an unlocked door. Tsutsumi Sakamoto was struck on the head with a hammer, injected with potassium chloride, and strangled. His wife, Satoko Sakamoto, Sakamoto Satoko, 29 years old, was beaten and injected with potassium chloride. Their infant son Tatsuhiko Sakamoto, Sakamoto Tatsuhiko, 14 months old, was injected with the potassium chloride and then his face was covered with a cloth. The family's remains were placed in metal drums and hidden in 3 separate rural areas in 3 different prefectures, Tsutsumi in Niigata, Satoko in Toyama, and Tatsuhiko in Nagano, so that in case the bodies were uncovered, police might not link the 3 incidents. Their bed sheets were burned and the tools were dropped in the ocean. The victims' teeth were smashed to frustrate identification. Their bodies were not found until the perpetrators revealed the locations after they were captured in connection with the 1995 Tokyo subway attack. By the time police searched the areas in which the victims were placed, their bodies were reduced to bones. In 2015, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police had received a tip that an Aum member was involved in the murder, and in 1991 launched an investigation into the cult's facilities in the city. However, the investigation was shut down after 2 months due to the murder having been committed in Yokohama, outside of the jurisdiction of the Tokyo Police. In 2015, the Tokyo Metropolitan Police had received a tip that an Aum member was involved in the murder, and in 1991 launched an investigation into the cult's facilities in the city. However, the investigation was shut down after 2 months due to the murder having been committed in Yokohama, outside of the jurisdiction of the Tokyo Police. Evidence of Aum Shinrikyo's involvement in the murders was uncovered 6 years after the murder, after a number of senior followers were arrested on other charges, most notably in connection with the Tokyo subway attack. All of those implicated in the Sakamoto murders received death sentences. The court found that the murder was committed by order of the group's founder, Shoko Asahara, although not all of the perpetrators testified to this effect, and Asahara denied involvement. Asahara's legal team claims that blaming him is an attempt to shift personal responsibility to a higher authority. After the culpability of Tokyo Broadcasting System in the murders was uncovered, the network was swamped with complaints and eventually the company's president resigned. A leading Japanese television network defended its reputation Wednesday as it faced a parliamentary grilling over its ethics after it showed a doomsday cult an interview that may have resulted in the death of an anti-cult figure. A Tokyo Broadcasting System official admitted for the first time that the channel agreed to show to members of the Supreme Truth cult a 1989 videotaped interview, which had not yet aired, of Japanese lawyer Tsutsumi Sakamoto. Sakamoto had been aiding families of cult members in freeing their relatives from the sect. 9 days after TBS let the sect members view the tape, Sakamoto, his wife Satoko, and their 1-year-old son Tatsuhiko disappeared. Their bodies were found almost 6 years later, and Om's second-in-command, Kiyohide Hayakawa, pleaded guilty at the end of March to their murders. TBS Managing Director Atsuo Suzuki admitted Tuesday. A producer said he agreed with Om members to show the footage before airing and asked them not to tell anybody about the deal. The producer in charge of the interview, who later was fired by TBS, never told police that all members had seen the videotape even after the disappearance of the Sakamotos was widely reported. A lawmaker from the Liberal Democratic Party, the largest partner in the three-party ruling coalition, suggested officials should review TBS's license conditions because its actions might have triggered the 3 killings. "We will take tough action against TBS," said Posts and Telecommunication Minister Ichiro Hino at a Communication Committee hearing in the lower house of the Diet, Japan's parliament. He did not elaborate on specifics. 13 of Om's leaders face charges related to the March 20, 1995, poison gas attack on Tokyo's subway system that killed 12 people and injured more than 5,500 others. Media sources have alleged that TBS agreed to show the interview footage to cult members in exchange for their arranging of an one-on-one interview with Om leader Shoko Asahara in Germany. "I sincerely want to apologize to Sakamoto," said TBS President Hirozo Isozaki at the Diet hearing. "He accepted the interview because he trusted us. We betrayed the trust not only of ourselves, but also of the entire broadcasting industry." The fine line between journalism and entertainment has become ambiguous, especially in the private broadcasting industry, said television producer Junichi Yoshiyama in the Asahi Shimbun newspaper. "Now everybody in the industry has to think about how journalism should be." The mass circulation newspaper Mainichi Shimbun, which has an alliance with TBS, said in its editorial section that competitiveness of the rating system had contributed to the decline of journalistic ethics. "TBS has abandoned its ethics and fallen in the trap," said the editorial. The bodies of the Sakamoto family were discovered last September following a confession by an Om member after he was taken into custody by the police. More executives, including Isozaki and other network leaders, continued to answer questions in Parliament Wednesday. The interview with Sakamoto was never aired publicly. On the morning of March 20, 1995, members of the Om Shinrikyo, Supreme Truth, Doomsday Cult carried out the deadliest act of domestic terrorism in the post-war era, releasing a toxic nerve gas that killed 13 and injured thousands during the rush hour in Tokyo. Following the Tokyo attacks, police charged Om members Hideo Mirai, Tomomasa Nakagawa, Kazuaki Okazaki, and Satoru Hashimoto with the murder of the Sakamoto family. Okazaki's trial was the shortest, as he pleaded guilty to all charges. Mirai never made it to trial, as he was stabbed to death by a Yakuza-affiliated Zainichi Korean assassin in April 1995 as he was being transferred by police. Okazaki was found guilty in October 1998. A court in Japan has upheld the death sentence against a co-founder of the doomsday cult Om Shinrikyo for the murder of 4 people. Kazuaki Okazaki, 41, was convicted in 1998 for killing an anti-sect lawyer, his wife and baby son, and a cult member who had tried to leave after witnessing an earlier killing. The death sentence passed on Okazaki was the first for a member of Om, the group which in 1995 released deadly sarin nerve gas in the Tokyo subway, killing 12 people and injuring thousands of others. The sect has now renounced violence and renamed itself Aleph. I's lawyers had argued he was under mind control by Om's main founder, Chizuo Matsumoto, better known by his pseudonym Shoko Asahara, who is still on trial. The court rejected that argument. The defendant believed Matsumoto's doctrine and independently decided to follow his orders, said Judge Yoshimasa Kawabe. This was a cruel, brutal crime that crushed underfoot the idea of a society based on laws. In 1989, Okazaki and 5 other all members, on the order of their leader, had entered the Yokohama home of lawyer Tsutsumi Sakamoto, then 33, and killed him, his wife Satoko, 29, and 1-year-old son Tatsuhiko. That same year, Okazaki also murdered 21-year-old Shuji Taguchi, who had tried to leave the cult after witnessing an earlier killing. Okazaki fled from the sect in 1990 with $1.8 million, 230 million yen. He confessed to the murders 5 years later, 1 month after the Tokyo subway gassing. The dead lawyer's mother, Sachio Sakamoto, 70, said after the verdict that the ruling was just my painful memories of that time have eased, and my desire for the death penalty has lessened, she said. But the law must be upheld. Okazaki did not show any reaction when the verdict was read out. In 2017, Nakagawa published a memoir from prison in which he renounced his own beliefs, apologized to the families of his victims, and referred to leader Shoko Asahara as a criminal. Following the 2017 death of Kim Jong-nam, the half-brother of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Nakagawa wrote a letter from prison in which he expressed his belief that Kim Jong-nam had died from VX poisoning, quantities of which Aum Shinrikyo had produced and used in the 1990s. Nakagawa was executed on July 6, 2018, while Okazaki and Hashimoto were executed on July 26, 2018, 18 years and 1 day after being sentenced.